My number one piece of advice would be to just start on the project. I cannot recommend enough to just jump in and go. You don't have to know all the answers. Sometimes when you're working on a comic, you find them as you go. When I first started on LHM, I really didn't know what I was doing. It took me a long time to figure out what styles and what details really worked for the comic. Understand that it's not going to be perfect. But the beauty of making comics is that you can go back and change things and edit things if you need to.
Hello, my name is Annie, and you are listening to World of Webcomics, a podcast all about interviewing creative people who are telling stories online. This user I became aware of from someone who actually commented on the St. Catherine interview, so I'm very grateful to have been introduced to this awesome webcomic by a listener of the show. I do read your comments, I do take your suggestions, so please feel free to interact. I do want to apologize as well that I kind of took a bit of an unexpected break from the podcast. I've been sitting on these interviews ready to be edited for a while, and I have finally actually hired someone to help me edit them. Definitely check out Zoe Robinson on Instagram. I'll have her stuff linked below. She is an amazing artist and did an awesome job helping me with the post-production on this one and the future ones that you'll be hearing. I've just been kind of very inspired to work on the other parts of this YouTube channel. So if you're interested in that, I do a lot of other talking about visual storytelling and whatnot. So feel free to check those out as well. It's been very fun to see people respond to those. I'm glad that you don't mind seeing my dumb face sometimes. And I just loved talking to this creator, and I think that you're going to really enjoy everything that she had to say, and I will go ahead and let her introduce herself. Let's go to the interview. All right, well, for just getting started here, could you please introduce yourself as well as what you are known for online?
My name is Savie. I go by the username Savanita on Webtoon. I have a comic called Lord Have Mercy on Webtoon Canvas. It is a comic about a young Catholic priest and a Catholic sister kind of falling in love and forming a relationship during the 1960s in a small town. It's just like a small town, Catholic circles and whatnot. And the series currently has over 115,000 subscribers and over 9 million views online. So it's been a very successful project, and I'm very happy with that and very thankful for it.
Yes, congratulations. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. Thank you.
And thank you as well for giving us a little bit of like a pitch. I always like for people who might not have read the comic to know what it's about. So if that intrigues you, definitely be sure to check it out. And as well as knowing a little bit about the comic, I'd love to know a little bit about you. How did you first get into art, and how did you kind of find your way to comics?
So I would say that I've always been an artist. I've always been drawing, I think, since I was very, very young. And I started making comics when I was in grade school. And I think I would say for the last maybe over 10 years, I've been making comics. And Lord Have Mercy was obviously my most successful project on Webtoon. And I remember I was getting into digital art when I was in my teenage years. And I actually originally came up with Lord Have Mercy when I was a teenager. And I had concept art and ideas for the characters in the story. And I actually just abandoned it for 5 years. And I never really thought about it after that. I actually went off to do other things in my life. I went to school and got another job. It ended up not being what I really wanted to do. And it wasn't until last year that I started thinking about LHM again. It just kind of dawned on me one day when I was driving to work, and I was like, I really miss working on comics and art, and I just jumped back into it randomly last year, and I just was really passionate about it suddenly, and I just wanted to do it again. And I hadn't really picked up a drawing tablet in over 5 years, so it was very sudden. And I started posting it on Webtoon, and Webtoon started to feature it on like various things on the website under like categories, and we've had banner promotions for it. So it ended up becoming my new job, my new project. So I'm very incredibly thankful for that, because this is truly what I love to do. I've always been, like I said, I've always been a very creative person. So I think this is just what I'm really meant to do.
Wow. Okay. Yes. So I have a lot of questions from that. Teach me your ways. How does one make that transition from like regular 9 to 5 job to doing art full time?
See, that's the thing. I didn't think it was going to be my job, you know. It was kind of, I guess you could say it was luck. It was a lot of luck. I was working a lot last year. I was working really long shifts, and all I could think about was LHM. It was strange. I just started like sketching out ideas at work whenever I had like downtime. And whenever I had time at home, I would start working on the artwork and the pages. And eventually I had enough pages, so I just started uploading it to Webtoon. And then they noticed it somehow and they started featuring it. And like within a week, I was getting like thousands of people reading the comic. It was like amazing. It was really shocking because I didn't think anyone was going to like my comic. I kind of just made it for myself, you know. I didn't think that people were going to like it, but I was wrong. And eventually, you know, I participated in their ad revenue program and they got me approved for that. So within like a couple months, I was actually making enough money to get away from my old job and start working on this instead. And I also have like a Patreon, so my patrons help me a lot. They're wonderful. So it's a combination of just, you know, I guess working really hard, but I would say that I did get lucky at the same time. I'm very thankful that I was noticed by Webtoon, because if it weren't for them, I don't think this would have been my new job. But because they noticed me, I was able to get an audience and able to make enough money to survive doing this. So I'm very, again, I'm very thankful for it.
How cool. Well, I think it's really genuine and humble of you for that gratefulness. But at the same time, I think you might be not giving yourself enough credit, because some of the things that you did perhaps helped you get noticed. Like when I was looking at the dates, you were posting pretty much daily for a long period of
Oh, yeah.
time. Do you feel like that or any other factors kind of contributed to that luck? There's this kind of idea, right? Like the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really good question, because I've had people come to me and they make their own series and they're like, I'm not really getting noticed. I have a schedule and I'm posting like once a week. You know, you have any suggestions? And I just told them like, well, I was posting every day when I first started with LHM, because I already had like a buffer of several pages already done. And in fact, I was posting them on DeviantArt. I was getting like nobody noticing it on there. And so I eventually just figured, okay, I'm going to try Webtoon. And I was completely new to the website. I didn't understand how Webtoon worked. So I just started posting it every day on there, and I was getting feedback. For once in my life, I was getting feedback on my comic, and I just kept posting it every day. And I think, yeah, I do think it was part of that, of me just like posting it every day so that it was constantly being updated, that maybe that's what also helped me get noticed by Webtoon. So I mean, I think that plays into it as well, for sure. But I mean, again, I also think it was some luck as well. So
Yeah, that's just interesting to notice like all the different kind of factors that go into it. As far as this being an old idea, it's funny that you mentioned that as well. Like I even noticed that some older character designs that you posted on your Instagram, which I will have linked when I put this video up. And it's strange how as creators sometimes we always have these ideas kind of knocking around in our heads, and then sometimes they just seem to take hold of us. Do you attribute this newfound rush of inspiration for this story to anything in particular?
like, you mean like for inspiration, or?
Just the fact that it was an old idea that you kind of didn't really think about, and then all of a sudden it was something you really wanted to tell.
Yeah, I really can't explain it. It was just so strange, because I had not. I went through a creative block for 5 years. I wasn't really drawing or doing anything, and I was working a job that I really hated. Honestly, I was not happy in that job, and I wasn't. I was also just like not getting paid enough at that job, and I was being overworked. And
Mm.
I think it just came to me one day, like I started thinking about LHM, and I started thinking about like there's something so comforting about my idea for that story. It was very like warm, and it gave me a lot of inspiration. Suddenly, it was like it was just a rush. I was just driving to work, like I said, when it came to my mind again, and kept thinking about it and kept thinking about it, and I just would not stop thinking about it. And it got to the point where I was like, I need to go to the store, I need to buy a sketchbook, I need to get a pencil and start sketching out some concept art again. And so, yeah, that's when it all kind of, rebirthed itself. I wish I could say what exactly it was. It was just a feeling that I hadn't had for like a long time. So I don't know if it was just like my brain saying, I've had enough of not being creative. And it was just like a burst. It's like, let's get started. So yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. I can't really explain it.
I can see that. No, sometimes it feels like maybe this is pretentious, but it's sort of like, I don't know, the muse just struck. Like there isn't really an explanation always.
Yeah, it was just like something I was really passionate about again, and it was great.
I like as well how you mentioned that this sort of gave you that source of sweetness and comfort in a situation where you were not super fulfilled. And I think that's something that speaks to the story itself as well. So I'm kind of jumping around here, but I would love to talk about the story because it's something that could potentially be, very scandalous, but I think it's very humanizing, actually. It's very charming and sweet. And so I was wondering, where did the original idea come from? And do you have any intentions when you are writing a story like this?
Well, I came up with the idea like many years ago. So like the original idea was like, I guess it was a little bit more scandalous back then. I was younger. And I guess I just wasn't like as experienced in life, and I was just thinking like I want to make something like really maybe kind of scandalous. So, I don't know. I went to Catholic school in my youth.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I grew up in a very religious household, and I would say that maybe that was the prior experience I had, with all of that, maybe is also what made me want to do it. And yeah, I've always been kind of like wanting to make different types of characters. Luke and Esther are not the only characters I've ever made. This isn't the only story I've ever done. I've done a lot of different kinds of concepts and characters. I always try to, be flexible. I want to be able to do like anything, right? So, but I always felt like Luke and Esther were like great concept for a romance because I haven't really seen any other graphic novels or comics do this. So I was like, I'm gonna do it. I think people are either going to hate it or they're going to love it. So, but I mainly did it for myself, like this was just something to make me happy. And I thought it was a cute idea. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would say that when it first came to my mind, it was probably a little bit more scandalous. But when I came back to the idea, I was like, I want to make this really like wholesome also. I wanted to make it into like a real story. So yeah.
Yes, and that's kind of what I am meaning to point out. I love that you're able to definitely not shy away from these difficult issues, like these characters kind of struggling with being in these positions of power that they weren't expecting, and how to deal with, doubt and faith, but at the same time, like falling in love. Like it's dealt with in a very nuanced and authentic way, and I think that that's kudos. I think that's really well done.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm not the only writer on the project. LHM was originally created by me, and all the concepts and characters are done by me. I do have a co-writer who is also my boyfriend, who has helped, I think, make it the way that it is now. We write the story together. So I think our combination is what makes it better, rather than it just being me.
Yeah, and that's so good to know. I feel like that adds like a whole nother layer of romantic to it in a way.
It is. It is. I would have never thought this would happen in my life, but it did.
So I'd love to hear more insight on that. What is it like to be a co-writer?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I'm the one that tries to direct the story to where it goes, and he helps me write a lot of scripts and dialogue for the characters. Sometimes we don't always agree on things. That doesn't normally happen, but sometimes, we'll kind of like debate what we want to do with the story. He helped me write an outline for it, so there is like a definite ending to it and all that. But we're still taking the scripts as we go with the scenes. We kind of, we already have the story mapped out, so we're dealing with like the more technical writing as we go. But for the most part, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy breezy. I storyboard everything, and he'll give me a script sometimes, if I'm not helping writing it. And it helps me. It helps me a lot. It helps me save time, because the pages that I do take me a long time to make. And it's really nice to have him help. And yeah, we come to a conclusion with our scripts and we go forward with it. And a lot of the times, we're always paying attention to audience feedback on Webtoon. We're always reading comments and paying attention to what people say. And sometimes, the audience will kind of help us direct or change things in a script. If, people aren't happy with a certain thing, we might add a little bit more of what they want to it. So we do listen to audience feedback as well. But yeah, we're a good team.
Interesting. That is such a unique thing to webcomics. How do you balance taking into consideration feedback while at the same time kind of trusting your own like artistic decisions?
Balancing it, yeah. I mean, we already, like I said, we already have a script, but whenever we listen to the audience feedback, sometimes we'll really take into consideration and we'll change things if we need to.
Mm.
I think the audience, they definitely play a huge role in it now that we have such a large audience reading it. So we definitely do listen. Sometimes, first and foremost, we kind of know what we're doing, but, sometimes, again, like the audience will just help us direct it to a different way if we need to do that. It's kind of hard for me to explain, to be honest, because we've been pretty lucky. Like, I think people have been pretty happy with how we've had it written, So I wouldn't say like it's much of a struggle or anything, but we definitely still listen to what they say, and sometimes we'll change stuff for it. So yeah, I don't know, we've been lucky. I think we've been lucky.
Sounds like it kind of just works organically.
Yeah, it does. It's hard for me to explain, but that's basically it. It just works itself out usually.
Yeah, okay. No, yeah, I get it. Thank you for sharing. As far as like the technical aspects of writing, I know you mentioned it's kind of both of you guys and you take on different roles in that. But what does the actual writing process look like? Is it like a formal script or outline? And do you have the whole story figured out? How does that work?
So when we worked on the outline, we made sure to try to hit important story elements or things to like flesh out the personality of the characters. Brogan, my co-writer, aka my boyfriend, he'll write the script, and I'll try to, I'll draw the characters, I'll draw the storyboard, and we just try to add personality to like every little thing. The dialogue, the environment, down to earth characters' reactions at a given time and whatnot. And we're trying to have everything just build to like this romantic chemistry, like the audience loves, or otherwise just like add to the plot as a whole. We've even like thought out like roles of like the citizens going to church and just having like that sort of detail to like make the story feel like it's a real world, that people seem to be like attracted to. And like for Luke and Esther themselves, we try to have their personalities grow as they're with each other. There's a lot of character development going on, especially right now in the story. So like you said earlier, we try to make the characters very human, very grounded, very relatable, while also being, people of the clergy. So it's pretty fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it just makes me think like it's good to have like a narrative goal at the heart of it, like remembering that all of these different aspects inform the story as a whole, but at the heart it is a love story, and I love that.
Yeah, it's fun. I've never felt like this sort of passion for a project, and LHM has definitely been my passion project, and I'm happy that, I'm happy that it's so well received and people can recognize, that this story it's a very, I guess you could say it's a kind of relatable, and you can relate to the characters even though, you may not be a priest or a sister. But yeah.
Yes, definitely. I think that's very true. Especially myself as a teacher. I got first year teacher flashbacks
Oh, did you?
for poor Esther. Yes, poor lady doesn't know classroom management yet, but that's okay because father
Yeah,
he's there to
she's
help her.
working on that
Yeah.
confidence.
Now, as long as we're talking about projects, I also would love to discuss Amelia Harris, which is your short story contribution to Webtoon.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'd love to talk about that.
So obviously these are both very different, but there are similarities I think that could be drawn. So as far as just the story, do you recognize in your own work like certain common themes that you like to explore?
Well, yes, I'd say. I think, Amelia Harris is a period piece, much like LHM. I'm a very old-fashioned kind of person. I like vintage things. So first and foremost, I love like old-fashioned art styles. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that inspires me to make different stories, and also making characters again like very human, not like they may be cartoons, but they still have like, personality traits and maybe even quirks about them. Yeah, I don't know. I always like to add a little bit of like, I guess, just a real world feeling to the characters in the time periods that they're in. Like Luke and Nestor are in the 1960s, whereas Amelia Harris, we kind of explore her life from like the early I think it's 1918 up until 1933. So during that time, we incorporate things that happened during those periods of time to kind of help with the story for those different stories. And yeah, I don't know. I love period pieces, so that's like the biggest thing that I like to do. I don't like really doing a lot of modern day stuff. I'm very inspired by like old fashioned vintage stuff.
Yes, and it seems like those choices also kind of help inform the characters as well. Like in Lord Have Mercy, of course, these things would be much more controversial, of course, if we set it even further back in the past. So that kind of adds to the conflict. And I think kind of informs the visual style as well. Was that something intentional? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Definitely. I for Lord Have Mercy especially was definitely inspired by a lot of mid-century modern cartoons of that time of like the 50s and the 60s, which is I've always been infatuated with that art style. So, I wanted to kind of do like my own twist on it for LHM. And I'm really happy to know that people can recognize it for looking like a period piece of that time. And Amelia Harris is very inspired by like cartoons of like the 30s and the 40s, I'd say. So yeah, I definitely throw in that inspiration for the designs of the characters and the backgrounds and whatnot, and without it completely being beholden to the time periods, because I also like to make it into my own style. So yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
definitely.
I think it's like if Betty Boop were a detective, but also it's kind of spooky. So I love
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And of course, obviously, while there are those similarities, they are very different. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what it was like to work on a short story after having mostly focused on a long format story.
Oh boy, that's a good question because LHM is not formatted in Webtoon format. It's formatted by page format, and Amelia Harris was made for Webtoon because we entered in the short story contest, so I wanted it to look very Webtoon. Um, so that was a new experience. I didn't really know what I was doing with that one. I just kind of did what I felt was right, but in terms of like it being the short story versus the long story and how it felt, working on Amelia. I'll be honest with you, it was kind of a struggle at first because I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew that I had to get it done by the deadline, and I was like, I you know. I was like, this is an opportunity. I have to take it. So, yeah, I worked really hard on that one. That one, it's funny because we didn't really decide to do it until like the very end of May. And I had very little time to finish it. So, yeah, I honestly felt like every day I was working on that to get it out in time. And I'm really glad that we did. It was a struggle, but it was also like a learning thing. And I'd say that it was like an artistic journey for me because I was playing with a new style I've never really done before. And decisions had to be made fast and storyboards had to be done quick. So it was very, I guess you could say it was rushed in a way, but I wanted to make sure that everything looked at least decent. You know, I wanted it to be good. I worked very hard on it. But it was a little bit of a struggle. It was a little stressful just because it was a lot of work done in such a short time frame. But I'm so glad that we got it finished. And I'll be honest, I am super nervous about tomorrow because they are announcing the winners, and I don't know why. I'm just getting like that very like nervous slash excited feeling because I'm really nervous slash excited to see who's gonna win this thing tomorrow. So I apologize if I sound a little jittery or whatever right now.
Oh no, you can't see it, but I've got both fingers crossed. So good luck.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
And the thing is, it's very comforting. And honestly, I'm a little jealous to hear you say that, oh, it was such a struggle because it doesn't show at all. I think it's very clear that you have a handle on how to do this Webtoon format thing. Like, to be more specific, there was this one panel that really stuck out to me. It was like this sweeping shot of the lighthouse that felt so dramatic and perfect for Webtoon. Or like, without giving anything away, like it is a detective story essentially, and you also did this really clever thing of like sneaking in little hidden clues. And so I'm wondering, was that a conscious choice to kind of embrace the interactive aspect of Webtoon?
That's that's funny. Because originally, I guess I should just go ahead and say it. We have 3 chapters of Amelia Harris for the short story, and in chapter 2, while I was writing the script with the typewriter font, some of the letters were fading off for some reason, and I
Mm.
didn't go back to fix them. So people were commenting in the second episode, like, some of the letters are faded. Is this like a secret message? And so I was like, huh? And I didn't even think about that. And so in episode 3, I was like, you know what? That's actually not a bad idea. So I actually went ahead and made a secret message for episode 3 for people to decipher in the text. But yeah, that was
Wow,
fun.
okay, how cool is that? So it's like art imitating life and vice versa.
Yeah, very much so.
Oh, 'cause I gotta tell you, when I was reading that chapter, I'm even just talking about it right now, like, literally goosebumps, just the idea that I was like, "Oh, wait, is this does this mean something?" And I was, like, taking notes and, like, writing down the letters, like, that is so fun, and I think it just really ignites a lot of, inspiration. It makes me think about, like, the possibilities that we could be taking advantage of for specifically webcomics.
Yeah, I think it helped with the story because Amelia Harris is a mind bender, so we wanted to make I thought that was just a good idea to add in to make it even more mind bendy because it's a mystery. There's a lot of answers, there's a lot of theories and questions that have not been able to be answered. So yeah.
Well, speaking of questions, regardless of what happens, it's an amazing story, and I'm sure that it will get the recognition that it deserves. And we do have some questions still. So can we expect more from this story in the future?
Of Amelia Harris? Possibly. I would like to see what happens tomorrow. And yeah, I mean, even if we don't win, I might want to continue with the series. I may want to go ahead and kind of like redo it for Canvas with like more in-depth episodes and a more in-depth timeline of Amelia's life. So that's a possibility.
And that's another thing I'd like to point out too is that you managed to cover a lot of her life in a short story, but it's all held together really well by a lot of visual motifs. So I don't know. That's not really a question. I just like that.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I have to just go ahead and throw it out there that I really did not write Amelia Harris. This was all written by Brogan.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't write it, but, he helped me basically. Like, I had the ideas for the characters and the story, but he's the one who wrote it. So, I just kind of helped bring it to life through the webcomic. And yeah, so I would say, like, shout out to him for that.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, shout out to both you guys as a team and also relationship goals. Jeez.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, now that we're kind of talking about like the magic of webcomics, I'd love to hear your thoughts on for you, what do you feel are the pros and cons of platforms like Webtoon, especially as someone who was posting on DeviantArt and then moved over?
It's funny because I actually would love to have a traditional print of my comic. My comic isn't formatted like a typical webtoon. It's built for normal comic pages in mind. That being said, it's hard to enter the publishing world and the magic of the internet, and webtoon is like one where you can have your voice heard from anywhere, and it's free and people can just get on their phones and read it when it updates. So that's absolutely a pro to it. I think the internet empowers artists to participate and like cultivate their own communities and build towards a self-sustaining career. I've one of my favorite things that I've ever said was there is no better time to be an artist than right now because of the internet. So the cons of a site like Webtoon, however, I would say is like you're dependent on it. I was lucky to be advertised by them, and that sort of luck can't be promised to everybody. You're just kind of at the whims of fate at the point, and it can be very scary sometimes if you don't find success. So yeah, I mean, I would say like maybe that's the con of it, but for the most part, I think Webtoon has a lot of pros. Being a webcomic artist has a lot of pros, especially if you can manage to find a way to make money from it.
Definitely. And speaking of, could you tell us more about what it was like to be a part of their ad revenue program? How does that work?
So I think if I'm correct, you have to have 40,000 page views on your comic and at least over 1,000 subscribers. And if you can reach those requirements, you can apply for their ad revenue program. And if they approve you, that is a great way for you to start posting more so that you can get, money. I think I'm not really quite sure if they've changed it or not, but I think if as long as you post at least once a month, you will make money from the ad revenue and page views. So they have like a creator rewards program for people that if they can reach like a certain amount of page views per month, they get paid a certain amount of money a month, including ad revenue money. So it's pretty nice. You can actually make a pretty decent income off of doing it if you're able to reach the requirements of the website.
Right. And I think that really speaks to what you said earlier about like, this is kind of the best time to be an artist. I'm very excited by all these new opportunities. And I think that also kind of leads me to ask about Patreon. What would be your tips for someone who might listen and be thinking about creating their own Patreon?
I would say definitely give your patrons like some personal, like, I'm not sure what the right word is. If you can like interact with them, I think that's really good. Also, just obviously give them content, give them special things, make them have a reason to be a patron. I post my pages early on Patreon so that they can get early access to them. And I'll occasionally post, special artworks for them so that they get access to that. And I even ask for their feedback. I ask for their feedback a lot. I want to know like if something doesn't look right on a page, or did I make a typo, or you know should I change the script a little bit, because I've also like posted scripts on here. And it's really, really nice to have them. They are, if you have patrons, they are the best because, you know, I think they really truly want to help you. And so, have an interaction with them and provide them content, provide them things that, not everyone would have access to unless they're a patron.
Yeah. And I've heard of this, so I feel like I kind of know what it is, but also feel sort of out of the loop. What is Discord? Could you explain that?
Oh, Discord. Yeah. It's like it's basically like a software service that you can download it online for free. It's like an app you can download on your computer or your phone or tablet, and it's just basically like your own server. You can make your own server with like different channels on it, and like each channel can have like specific things. Like you can have like a general chat, or you could have like a music sharing channel, and this is all under one server. We have a Lord Have Mercy server on Discord, and so it's a good way to get like fans to come in and like meet each other and talk about like stuff that we have in common and like share stuff on there. We have like an arts and crafts channel on there so people can like post their artwork and stuff and like talk about just anything really. People make these servers so that they can get like a community, like their own personalized community. It's great because like for me, I was able to make a lot of new friends off of it, and I was actually able to get more patrons from having a Discord because again, that personal touch, you get to talk to people, you get to meet people, and you get to like really get to know them. So, there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of possible things that can happen from a Discord server. It's just basically a thing where you can talk to people on and share stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it would just be fun for one, but also it's a great way to build engagement and kind of build your audience as well.
Oh yeah.
And we got to talk about story a lot, but I'd also love to talk about the art, especially since that is kind of your primary contribution to the project, right? For you, would you attribute any one in particular to inspirations for your very distinct style?
That's always a hard question for me to answer because I have a lot of different inspirations. But I think if I had to name one artist, I would say probably Gendy Tarkovsky. He's been a very inspirational person. His art and his cartoons have sort of built my childhood. If you're familiar with like the old shows like Samurai Jack or
Oh,
Symbionic Titan, those kind of cartoons were so inspirational to me, and he does take a lot of inspiration from like the old fashioned mid-century modern art styles, but he does have his own very distinct style to it. So I would say that he's one of my biggest inspirations in terms of artists, but like again, I it's not just him, it's so many. Again, like for LHM specifically, a very mid-century art style, vintage, retro, whatever you want to call it. And it's inspired by like just many different types of things, cartoons, comics. But yeah,
do you have a favorite step in the art making process?
a favorite step. I guess my favorite step would actually just be the final touches, because it starts off like as a sketch, and then we do line art, and I do coloring, and I do the value, the lighting, and the shading. So I guess my favorite step would probably just be the very end of it, just doing like the value, the lighting, the shading. The characters have cell shading, and I, do light and shading in the backgrounds and make things have a lot of depth. I would say that's probably my favorite just because it really just brings everything all together in the comic. I think, LHM, it looks good when it's, just line art and colors, but I think what really brings it all together is the value that I kind of add at the very end of it. So I guess that's like my favorite step. It's therapeutic for me. It's like therapeutic to be able to do those final touches to make everything just pop. So yeah.
I can see that. In addition to having a very distinct style, I love that all of your character designs are so distinct as well. I think that that would be especially hard when a lot of your characters are like hidden kind of in nun habits, for example. What would
Yeah.
be your character design tips?
Oh man. I think for me, I'm a cartoonist. So my character design tips coming from a cartoonist perspective is give the characters certain features, certain shapes and play with them, push them, figure out what makes this character look unique or different or just, stand out. Yeah, I would say, play with colors as well. Like it's kind of there's a lot to that actually, but for being a cartoonist, I would say, have fun with line work and making the characters have a lot of energy or, colors. Sometimes colors like on certain characters like Esther stands out because she has the red hair and the green eyes, and there's other sisters in the convent, and I think what makes her very, like bold is that she stands out a lot amongst the other sisters because of like colors and line work. And I give each character like their certain types of shapes so that they can be distinct. That would be my advice if you were, doing maybe cartoons, or I guess it could work for anyone, any kind of art style, but that would be my advice.
I love that. Yeah, she definitely stands out both visually because of the color. We've got this kind of shock of red hair. And then, of course, that helps her kind of stand out within the story as well because she's meant to be Irish, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that has like more implications about like identity and what that means for the time period of the story. So I just love all that. All those little details are like what I like to nerd out about.
That's awesome. I love it. Thank you.
Now, so this is what you do full time, right?
Yes.
And that, on the one hand, sounds like for a lot of people like a dream come true. But then on the other hand, I'm sure it comes with a lot of challenges as well. So for you, what are your time management tips?
I would say having discipline, set yourself a schedule if you want to work on comics, and if you find a way to make it your job, and if you wanted to make it your job, set yourself a schedule and work towards your goals every week or whenever you get the chance. And, try to have basically like a quota filled by the end of each week. And also, don't overwork yourself. I'm really guilty of staying at the computer for hours and hours and not taking up, not getting up to stretch or take a break because I guess I'm just so wired. I'm kind of a workaholic on my comics, and I'm trying to get better about it myself. But, it is really important to take breaks and have yourself, like a mental health day or a physical health day, or, have yourself a couple days out of the week where you can, kind of relax and maybe not work so hard on the comic or whatever. Yeah, so just I would say, set a decent schedule and try to get your work done, and don't overwork yourself, and be sure to take breaks. I still try to take breaks sometimes while I'm still working on pages, just because like I have personally like chronic back pain, so I have to take breaks sometimes just because like my back will be killing me. So it really does help, especially when you get older, because you're most likely going to start forming more issues the older you get, so even if you're a young artist and you're just starting and you're not experiencing that, still take breaks, stretch, exercise, whatever you need to do. But if you're not overworking yourself, but you're still working to where you can get what you need to get done, that's great.
I can definitely relate to the workaholic thing. It's funny, that word seems to come up a lot in these interviews. I wonder why. um, it seems to be a common thing amongst us comic book artists. Now, I love that encouragement of, give yourself a break. Is there anything in particular that you like to do to prioritize self care, or do you have other hobbies outside of art?
Yeah, recently I just got back from a vacation. I was out of town for a week. So I would say that maybe that was all. That was like kind of my mental break because, to be honest with you, the comic is on my mind a lot, and it's really important for me to relax and get my mind off of it. So yeah, I would say I probably take at least 2 days out of a week, 2 or 3 days out of a week sometimes, to kind of have like a little bit of downtime, and relax. Like one of my things is like I play video games that just gets my mind off of the comic, or I'll do chores and stuff like that around the house. And I do have, I guess, other hobbies, but I don't really like do them a lot. Art is like my main hobby now. And it's kind of hard to have other hobbies when you are a comic artist because it's like all you do. But I would say, yeah, like I definitely have other things that help me take my mind off of the comic. And yeah, I, you know, I do like to treat myself every now and then as well. So that's always good. I recommend people, that are doing this as a job to find things to do during the week. Give yourself a little bit of a break, a treat for being able to get everything done. Again, don't be too much of an over workaholic like me.
Do you have any game recommendations?
For games, oh man, I play a lot of different types of games. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing. That's one of them. That you'll sink all your time into that game, or or maybe like Stardew Valley. That's another game that I play. It's like a farming game. It's also available on the Switch along with like Animal Crossing. And I play some online games. I play an online game called Dead by Daylight, and that game really is a time sinker for me. So sometimes I'll be like too attached to it, and I have to get out. Yeah, those are the three ones I've been playing a lot. But to be honest with you, I play a lot of video games. It just kind of depends on my mood. But I have like my go-to games where it's like, okay, it's time for me to take a break. I need to get my mind off of work, and I would say those are the ones that I've been playing recently a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. Games have come up in other interviews as well before. I think what's so great about them, and maybe something that we need to be careful about with them, is that they take all of your attention. Like I
They
think
do.
that's why they're so great for relaxing. Is that like I can try to keep working if I'm like watching a movie, but with a video game, it's like no, just relax. This is the only thing you can do.
Oh yeah, because like you're focusing on that, and I don't know, something about it because you're interacting with it. It doesn't make me restless, it's hard for me to sit down and actually watch TV or movies, to be honest, because I'm not interacting with it. Video games are a way for me to completely relax. But that's just me.
No, yeah, I can see that. Well, looking to start wrapping up here. For you, what just general advice would you give to aspiring comic creators?
My number one piece of advice would be to just start on the project. I cannot recommend enough to just jump in and go. You don't have to know all the answers. Sometimes when you're working on a comic, you find them as you go. When I first started on LHM, I really didn't know what I was doing. It took me a long time to figure out what styles and what details really worked for the comic. Understand that it's not going to be perfect. But the beauty of making comics is that you can go back and change things and edit things if you need to. Me, for example, I have to go back and edit over 90 pages of my comic because of consistency issues with the character designs and other things like that. So I have to do that, but you know what? I'm okay with it because that it's worth it to me. And it's really like, there's no black and white with it. You can change things. You can go back and change the story even if you have to. But yeah, just start, just go, jump right into it. I know a lot of artists that want to do their comics right now, or they're like thinking about doing comics, or they have ideas, but then they're like, oh well, my art style's not good enough yet, so I can't start the comic yet. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, you should just go ahead and start it, just do it, because you'll learn as you go. You'll learn to figure out your art style. That, like, making comics is been like the biggest self-taught lesson I've ever done, to be honest, as an artist, because I've learned how to like jump out of my comfort zone. I've learned how to play with different things, perspectives and characters and scenes, just everything. And you will grow so much if you just continue to make comics. You'll learn so much as you do it. So yeah, I mean, that's what I have to say. It's just like, what are you waiting for? Just go for it. That's my biggest advice.
Yes, yes to all of that. I love it. That's so refreshing to hear because I do think it's important to, think about things, but at the same time, if you just wait forever, you're not going to learn by doing. That's the most important thing. We learn by doing, and also just being given the permission to be like, hey, it's okay to change things too. Like, I love
Yes.
that. I think there's this pressure sometimes that we feel like as soon as we hit that upload button, it's set in stone, and it's like, not necessarily. You can change it. It's fine.
There's people on Webtoon Canvas that go back and rewrite their stories and change their comics all the time. And there's absolutely like nothing wrong with that. You know, we're only human. We're artists. We're supposed to like learn from our mistakes. We're supposed to learn as we do it. So yeah.
Definitely. Oh, great. Okay. Well, this has been such a lovely conversation. Thank you for making the time and giving your really valuable insight. If people would like to find you on the interwebs, where would they do so?
So if you want to find me, you can go to webtoons.com and just look up Lord Have Mercy or Savanita for, my work. And I also have a Twitter account. My Twitter handle is Black Sabbath with an underscore between Black and Sabbath. And I also have a Instagram called Savanita Art. So there's, those are the three best ways that you can find me. And if you want to get in contact with me, again, those are the best three ways. And we also have the Discord up. So you can go to Lord Have Mercy, and I post the Discord link in the recent updates. So if you want to, come find me and want to like talk to me, I'm available to do so, especially on Discord. That's probably the easiest way to get in contact with me.
Excellent. Well, I will have all of that linked in the description for when this goes up. And just, Savie, thank you again. I just really liked hearing what you had to say.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Annie. And this was awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you again to Savanita for joining us on the World of Webcomics podcast. Check out all her social stuff in the description below. Check out Zoe, my awesome editor, which I have now, which is great. So happy that I made that decision. If you like my stuff or you want to check it out, I am Couch Potato Artist on Instagram and Twitter now, which is another thing I have, apparently. And you can read my comic, Soul Match, on Webtoon. It's currently on hiatus, but I am working hard on Chapter 2 as we speak. Feel free to leave more suggestions for other creators that you would like for me to speak to, and I will do my best to reach out. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you next week. I used to say next Monday, but sometimes there's not one. Just subscribe and you'll get updates and you'll know. We're just it's 2020. It's fine. Bye guys.